Yo, yo, yo. Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you guys hear me? Yes, sirree. Maybe so. Yes, no. Can we do a quick mic test? Can you guys hear me okay? Type yes or Y in the chat. Welcome. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It does help the channel a lot. Hit that subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen, and like the video. Howdy, y'all. Howdy. Thinking of doing this live stream all in a Texan accent today. You guys want me to do like a real Texas accent from for a live, or not a live stream, but a real video? Just do a complete Bitcoin analysis in a Texan accent? Nah, man, I'm from Korea. But I can pull off a pretty good English accent. Howdy. What's going on, Spiros? I don't. Who are you, Andre? I don't remember you, man. Sorry. Usually I'm good remembering. Ah, okay. Cool. Welcome. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get this started. We need one more like. We need one more like and we can start this live stream. Let me just get my spit bucket. Turn off that text. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the live stream. If you haven't already, before we start, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hope you're all having a fantastic day. Grab yourself some sweet tea, sit back and relax. Enjoy the sun, enjoy the evening if you're on the other side of the world like I am. Now let's get started with the possible Bitcoin outcome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Today we got a lot of things to talk about. First of all, I'm just going to go very briefly over the expectations from what could be from a Trump or Harris administration. I think it's just going to be a non-biased approach, of course, right? Now, this is going to be a very wild ride for Bitcoin, especially with this election, because we're at such a peak point for not only Bitcoin, but just overall, right? And especially with Harris and Trump bringing very different ideas to the table. Now, each of them has very distinct views on the economy, financial regulations, tech innovation, and so forth. And everything all directly and indirectly is going to be shaping Bitcoin's future in a lot of unique ways. It's going to be a very interesting election cycle. Now, in today's live stream, I'm going to just very quickly break down on what I personally think what a Harris or Trump victory might mean for Bitcoin's price, any possible future regulations that might come into play, and mainstream adoption, and what each might bring to the table, and also how we can combine that narrative with the Elliott wave theory, because that is our primary focus, right, from a technical analysis perspective, okay? And all of this is, again, just purely opinion, so please do note that everything is just opinion. I'm not siding one with another, but it is important for us people who are in crypto to understand what each side could bring. Now, you might be thinking, first of all, Bitcoin is decentralized, right? No government or central bank owns or controls it, so why should politics matter? Well, here's the thing. Governments influence finance no matter what, okay? I don't care what country you're living in, it influences finance, regulations, and even global trade. It's not surprising what the governments can do, right? No matter how much you may love or despise it, we all live in that world right now. But this is important because it does have a huge impact on Bitcoin. Now, each tax policy or trading rule or crypto restriction affects how people sees and uses Bitcoin, especially from a crypto perspective. Investors want to know how much freedom they'll have with their crypto. That's the ultimate $1 million question. And ultimately, that freedom could depend on who's in the White House. And that is going to be the point of this video. Everything is going to be dependent on who's in the White House. That's my opinion. Now, if Harris wins, for example, let's just talk about like her actually winning. Let's say she wins the election, completely wins the blue wall, Nevada. Let's just say that she wins the election. So what would it be like? And if Harris wins, let's just talk about her actual approach on regulation. For her, it's about making it a safer market because that's what she's known for, being a successor to her preceding leaders, right? So what's next for Bitcoin if she actually wins? I think that a Harris administration, of course, is going to be leaning more towards the regulation side of things, especially in finance, and her approach would likely focus on making crypto markets safer, quote unquote, for the average investors. So in that regard, there isn't a devil in everything. In fact, it can be pretty good in that regard. So that's why we're talking about the pros and cons here. In my opinion, I think her administration would most likely aim to prevent things like fraud and protect consumer scams as well. So her administration might look to implement regulations that might require things like KYC, implementing more of that KYC, the know your customer on exchanges. It's also going to have more anti-laundering measures on a lot of crypto platforms. So in a way, it's going to make it a better, for lack of words, stricter for identification processing and more reporting to prevent illegal activities. And while it sounds limiting to you, if you are in Bitcoin right now, regulation from a pro perspective is also going to benefit Bitcoin in the long term. That's it. It's just how it is. Bitcoin is here to stay, but it's going to be the shorter and kind of a long-term approach. Both candidates, in my opinion, will have a pretty good outcome no matter what. It's been that way for the past 4 or 5 years, right? Now, despite that, in my opinion, if she won, there would be no doubt probably a pretty large sell-off, right? As soon as it's announced, because we do know that Trump has a pretty huge advantage when it comes to the direct impact of crypto. But that's only for the short term, in my opinion. People are going to resist this but they're going to know that it's safer deep within their hearts as an investor, which could eventually bring more people into the crypto space eventually. And that's the key word, right? So for Bitcoin regulations on her side, it's going to bring more stability, more or less. It's going to track a larger amount of institutional investors like hedge funds, pension funds, and especially bank institutions. So when big money feels safer to invest into Bitcoin, it could gain a much, much stronger foundation in the future road as well. So Again, in my opinion, a Kamala Harris win could mean a more controlled and stable Bitcoin market if regulation becomes mainstream. That's how it's been for the past 4 or 5 years, right? Now, traditional investors may feel confident enough to dive into crypto, and it's going to create like a stable path for Bitcoin's growth over the next decade or so. So that is a positive note. Now, the bad thing is there are a lot of crypto bros or people out there, possibly including you, that there is some negative connotation attached towards her from an emotional aspect because of all of these regulations attached. I, for one, am particularly feeling that kind of sentiment as well. So there's no beating around the bush for that. The benefits of a regulated market, like, why would anyone want a regulated market, right? Like, we don't want KYC. We want to be able to trade on exchanges without restrictions. We want to have access to futures markets, right? Regulations, for example, it happened with gold outside of government control. So once regulations were put into place, right, gold became a more trusted asset. And today it's, of course, a major part of investment portfolios worldwide. That's a classic example. And this could happen with Bitcoin as well. So with the right rules, Bitcoin could gain legitimacy, like real legitimacy. Imagine Bitcoin ETFs on major exchanges accessible to everyone from Wall Street to even you as an everyday investor. And we're already seeing that with ETFs, more or less to an extent. It could and will, in my opinion, lead to a long-term stability, no matter which candidate it is. And I'm talking more specifically about a Harris administration coming into office right now. It could be a small or slight detour is what I'm saying. And that's where I also have discussed in my previous videos on my personal theory, which is called the market maturity phase theory. Now that can lead to the possible, sideways possible market where we could be going for that pullback that, like I said, if Harris comes into the office, that maybe we're not ready for Bitcoin to be as enthusiastic as we want it to be, right? So with the Harris administration, we might be looking at a future where Bitcoin isn't just a niche asset, it's actually accepted and is going to be more of a reliable part of the financial system. And that's what I mean by having more of a market maturity phase before we actually move up, right? So that's what I'm saying. The end result, in my opinion, is going to be a win-win situation for whoever it may be. But we really want Bitcoin to go up now, right? So I'm trying to break down the pros and cons from a shorter term and long-term perspective. But what if Trump wins? To be honest, that's what probably most want on here, right? If he wins, I would probably guess right away that within the next few months, like we have for our primary scenario on Bitcoin, that has been our overall narrative, which is to the upside, we're most likely going to hit $100,000, give or take. That's my opinion if a Trump win happens. Now, the market cap is going to go probably absolutely insane. You've seen him at the Bitcoin rallies. You've seen Trump at Bitcoin rallies. There's without a doubt that there's a strong favorability for Trump, right? So if Trump wins, you can just imagine a more free market and even more volatility to come in. So Trump has shown that in the past that he prefers a more hands-on approach when it comes to these regulations. He believes in letting the market decide its own fate. So under a Trump administration, we might see minimal federal control over crypto in the shorter term. And I'm talking about the next 4 years. And that's kind of a better thing to have right now if you are in crypto. So this approach, it's going to lead to extremely wild price volatility in the short term. That's the kind of key thing here against the Kamala Harris administration, which is one of the reasons why we love Bitcoin so much, because of that volatility, right? Without clear regulation, Bitcoin would remain arguably a higher risk and higher reward asset. And this could attract a lot of risk takers. So people looking to make massive gains in a short time, this is going to be awesome for you no matter what, right? However, it might deter more conservative investors, your grandma, grandpa who's thinking to put their final social security check into Bitcoin. So those who want stability, for those that are looking for, a massive thrill, a Trump administration is going to be for you guys. That's the main key thing here. Now, without the tight regulations, like I said, Bitcoin's volatility, it's going to soar. In my opinion, it's going to lead to higher prices and huge dips. It's going to be a very risky environment, but that's exactly, like I've said as well, that makes Bitcoin extremely fun to be investing into right now, right? So even taxes, like both candidates, each of them is going to impact Bitcoin significantly as well. Kamala Harris administration is going to be pushing for higher capital gains tax on wealthy individuals, or at least that's what they want, which could mean higher taxes for those cashing in on Bitcoin. That's why there's a lot of these indirect predictions on why Bitcoin might go for a very big pullback if Kamala Harris wins. So traders might be discouraged from making short-term trades if you have to pay attention to, even taxes, for example. Whereas Trump, on the other hand, he's more likely to keep capital gains, arguably low, and this lower tax burden, it can make Bitcoin a far more attractive asset to invest in for storing wealth, particularly for high net individuals or those who would like to become high net worth individuals, right? I'm guessing that's what you would like to have the outcome as. So people who want to reduce taxes on their investment might turn to Bitcoin, and it's going to potentially drive up the demand and also the price as well. So under Trump, Bitcoin is going to become much more appealing of a place for wealth storage, including Bitcoin, and people are going to look to escape capital gains tax on assets. Whereas Harris's higher taxes, it could mean a slower but steadier investment for people as people adopt on a more long-term mindset, right? So you can see, I'm not saying that because of Trump, I think it's still going to be, no matter what, a positive outcome, whoever the outcome is. It's just more of the short-term aspect because we are at a area of a pivotal point and you guys are in that current making of history. That's the important thing. There are people on the sideline who want to get into Bitcoin, and those people are more of the conservative people who would like to get into Bitcoin, understanding more of the regulations, understanding more of the risks. But you and I, who are already in crypto, might already know what the risks are. We already know what kind of volatility comes with Bitcoin. So ideally, really, both candidates are going to be a huge contributing factor indirectly, and that's the key word, indirectly. Now, if you want to add the vocabulary term directly instead of the word indirectly into this narrative, it's simple. You want to have Trump in the House, the White House, if you're strictly wanting to see a direct impact if you are comparing the two. It's just a matter of a fact. It's not an opinion. It's just how the sentiment is currently. A lot of crypto people are heavily leaning towards him, whether you like him or not. It's just how it is. You've seen him at the rallies. It's just how it is. We want Trump to win, and he's going to be one of the main driving factors that's going to be contributing to a major rally to the upside, in my opinion, even though both provide promising Bitcoin returns over the decade, and that's the overall outcome. Is just more of the timeline perspective that you have to understand. It's the Trump administration that's really going to allow Bitcoin to soar, in my opinion, if we're going to be sticking with this overall narrative. And that's why we have this bias intact as well. So I'm not going to get into their policies, but I'm just assuming that many of you are also invested into Bitcoin, and you definitely want to lean into a candidate where your money is actually parked, right? And where it's going to be going, which you want to go to the upside as well, right? You don't want it to go to the downside unless you're massively sure or you're going against your own ethical approaches on how you see, a Kamala versus a Harris administration. So there's a lot of hypocrisy as well. So it's very important to understand your priorities, understanding the priorities of your investment portfolio, understanding the priorities of whatever democracy is in your kind of ideology as well, right? So in my opinion, it's going to really boil down to a bunch of swing states, like always. And that's why this election is extremely important. We got Georgia, we got Nevada that's very on the edge. I think in the past that has been a very important key battleground state. In the blue wall here, we got Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Those are going to be the extreme important ones. I think one of them, this is going to be the key one, right? I'm sure you guys already see it in the news and stuff, but if you're not following politics, these three states are going to be very key. These, I don't know, Georgia, it's back and forth these days. It's a toss-up, right? Because past election, different. Past election before that, different. It's becoming a swing state in itself as well. So that's what we have to kind of really anticipate. Do you want a Trump administration because, you are looking for a long-term, it doesn't match up is what I'm saying. Of course, both candidates are going to be matching up, so you have to boil it down. Shorter term or, midterm, do you want Kamala Harris to win, but also you're in Bitcoin? You're going to have to understand the risks involved with that as well. If you're wanting Kamala Harris to win, but you are in Bitcoin, the ideology between your investment portfolio might not match. It just doesn't make sense, right, from that perspective. And that's why I think that anticipation for a Trump victory is coming right up now. That's the important thing for me, that is, at least, from opinion-wise. And in fact, a lot of investors are hedging right now on a Harris administration, which is a good sign, because if they're hedging on Harris administration, then they're betting that Trump is going to win. So a lot of institutions are also betting on the economy in favor of Trump policies already. So this is already also looking pretty darn good for Trump in the case we're just strictly speaking from the Electoral College, right? But again, I don't care about your tinfoil hat theories on what the outcome is going to be or what your policy stance is going to be. We're just talking about what the current sentiment is. It's a very, very huge toss-up right now between the two. I think more so probably than any other election, in my opinion. But like I've said, the world right now is really heavily watching this election, because it's going to be kind of how the U.S. is going to be either taking a detour for crypto, where long-term is going to be okay, but regulations are going to be more of the important factors coming into play, or is it going to be a Trump victory where it's going to be heavily favoring, in my opinion, a more favorable move to the upside? I think that's the key thing that we have to be kind of understanding, okay? Understanding the short term and the long term. That's the two key things that we want to do it. So how does that boil down to what could be part of what we're observing with the Elliott wave theory? Now, I've been quite sound about this from not only my social media, but on here as well on YouTube, which is that we have a protected low. That is my theory, and that is my bias using the Elliott wave theory. I believe that we have a wave 4 in, and these past few months has proven itself to create higher lows, creating termination points for these wave 1-2s, and these 1-2s are finished as pretty significant corrective moves that show us that each consecutive move breaking these previous highs shows us that there's general great sentiment towards Bitcoin favoring to the upside. Now, in my opinion, I think that if a Trump administration were to win, I think that this here is going to be that final distribution zone, and we move up to the upside. Why? That's also aligning with what we could see with the Elliott wave theory when we're nesting these 1-2s as much as we can. Now, this is not favorable from a narrowed down perspective from other Elliotticians as well, where we might see too many series of 1-2 ideas. Now, no idea right now has the best look, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a toss-up. Again, even it's just like with this Electoral College map, this is kind of what we're seeing for Bitcoin as well from an Elliott wave perspective. It's a huge toss-up. Both ideas are bad, right? But it's just favoring which poison you would like to take, right? That is the only thing that we have to be kind of approaching, is keeping it simple. In my opinion, that's why I'm just sticking to this idea that we have been sticking for the past few months, for the past 6 or 7 months, that is, where I thought this was a significant bottom, and we're finding all the right signs and clues that higher lows are being established, right? All of this is noise in between. That is the most important thing. We want to be now finally be concluding what could be these series of 3, 4, 5s. Now, that's going to be finishing off these 1-2s, nesting 1-2s. So we got a 3, 4, 5 of the primary degree and the higher degrees to complete now. And that should be bringing us more or less to the higher side. And again, just as likely we will see with the Harris administration, if it were to go down, we will see a downside for the Trump administration as well at a later stage. That's just the nature of cycle markets. That is how we're organizing this as best as we can. So what this means is we will see a larger bear market to come into play, where we will see an 80 to 70 to 85, 90% pullback on Bitcoin no matter what. That's the whole key point. We're going to see a larger pullback even with the Trump administration, right? Now, what if So we're going to stick with that idea. That's just how I see it. I'm not saying that the Trump administration is the key determination factor on this outcome, or for this favorable outcome for the scenarios. I'm just saying that it would be a favorable outcome for Trump to be in the White House if we're going to be continuing this, if we're racking up all the evidence for how we're observing the Elliott wave theory right now. So with that being said, our second idea, let's say that there's some wild volatility for whatever reason, it could be anything, especially between now and the next few days with the election happening. This could also be turning into what I would say is a similar outcome no matter what on a shorter time frame, which is the ending diagonal idea, where we're creating a series of corrective moves where the market finds indecision and we contract in nature to the upside, which is going to be finished as an ending diagonal. And again, ending diagonals are all created as three waves, and we will find signs, as we have all already found the signs of these waves 1, 2, and 3s, respectively. We are going to be looking for the last two remaining subwaves as corrective waves. But most importantly, it still meets our ultimate goal target of that higher degree wave 5. So as you can see, we're just finding the most important thing for that I think everyone has to understand is we're not trying to maximize our portfolio at this current stage. It would be stupid to think that, Bitcoin is going to $200,000, $300,000, no matter how much we want it and how much I would want it. It's just stupid to kind of prematurely think that, especially if you're taking a lesson or two from the previous bear markets, right? And that's why I'm saying the overall target of having a higher degree wave 5 is the ultimate target. We will find the signs of where we could find a slowdown at what level that is going to be happening at. But right now, the ultimate goal is a higher degree wave 5. That's the ultimate goal. No matter what, even if we hit $80,000, $100,000, and we look for whatever pullback, we will find the signs. And that's why the Elliott wave theory helps us kind of organize that based on the 3s and 5s. So that's why I think we will be most likely going for this ending diagonal idea. If this starts to slow and dissipate in the volume, we're not finding the real impulsive nature of Bitcoin's price action. I think that this moving correctively to the upside could be the idea as well. Now, like I mentioned, what if a Harris administration were to come in? We do have that possibility where we could be going for a pretty significant pullback, just like we did over here. That could bring us down 20 to 30% on Bitcoin as well. And at that point, that's where the distribution phase comes in my opinion, where we will see a pretty significant pullback in the short term, a pretty significant rise to the upside after all the aftermath has happened, and then we will see a massive crash that should be the continuation of what the Harris administration could bring on the table, and that should be the bear market altogether coming in earlier. So that, in my opinion, is how I am personally seeing it from a larger perspective. That's all puzzling in together with the shorter, medium, and longer time frames. I think that this will be a bear trap for sure. There will be negative sentiment to happen, distribution to the upside. Oh, this phase right here is going to be more like people who don't want to believe it, who want to believe it, and once she comes into the White House, we could see finally the final conclusive move to the downside, and that should be overall how the continued negative sentiment of her being in the House, just based on the current sentiment, right? That is why I'm saying no matter what scenario you choose, all of them are eventually leading to the upside, and all of them are leading eventually to the downside. It just depends on how we're looking at it day by day, and each scenario is coming to fruition now. It's at max or peak validation right now, and right now, in my opinion, the next few days, man, if Trump wins, I would expect a massive breakout. That's just how it is. I can't find any other reason, but I would eventually see that sustained pressure to the upside, and then once everyone is in Bitcoin, that is when we will see that massive bear market to happen, and no one will believe it, in my opinion. It's just from past market cycle. There is the overlapping ideas of, having what you're timing correctly. You want to be here, right? this is going to be the noise, this is going to be the noise, and this is going to be the noise. You know, this is us right now where we're currently in Bitcoin. Then there's going to be people transitioning into Bitcoin, and they're going to be part of that camp where they want to be getting the gains as much as they can out of the pie. And then there's going to be the final people who are going to be coming into the camp as well, and they're going to be late as well. And that's why you want to be ahead of the game and try to get out of that position as well. And I think the best analogy for that is, you know, the train analogy. You know, you're in the train, but you want to be getting off somewhere in the middle, right? You want to be entering here, and then once it stops, you want to get off here. You don't want to be late. You don't want to be missing the train either, but you also want to get off the train earlier as best as possible, right? And maximizing your efficiency and your optimal entries, and also maximizing your overall portfolio as best as you can without detrimenting, you know, going back into a bear market. You don't want to be caught in a bear market, right? So that's how I'm seeing it, ladies and gentlemen. From a 1-2-1-2 perspective, I think that's how I'm currently seeing the overall markets. This is just how I personally see it. And on top of that, a Trump favorability would help this idea going forward. That's just how I see it. And if I had to choose, I would say with the current sentiment that this would be heavily favoring towards a Trump rally. I don't see a Kamala Harris rally happening. That's just my opinion, though. But if a Kamala Harris were to come in, again, this would also fit more true to the narrative where we would see a larger pullback. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's how we're looking at it. Let's pull up Ethereum now, because Ethereum is also very interesting as well, because it is at a very strong limbo where we are possibly in a larger triangle. If you're following me on social media, I also portray this idea as well, which also fits into possibly the Kamala Harris administration and also Trump administration, which is the idea that we're accumulating right now in a larger wave 3, 4. So this here was all part of a distribution phase, and this would also favor a Trump favorability as well, overall target being met. At that point, all politics aside, all, you know, election noise out of the way, at that point, no one's going to care who's in the White House, right? It's all going to be fair and game, and it's all going to be fighting between the bears and bulls. And at that point, it's just all predictions, right? And in my opinion, that's a time where the first signs are going to be coming in with euphoria, right? I believe that we are entering a euphoria stage. So we are conclusively at pretty much the last stage of this bull market, in my opinion. And then we will be going for that massive move to the downside. And that's where I'm going to be hopefully capitalizing on overall short positions, right? So that's that. Again, shorter time frame idea is also taken into consideration, where we could see a larger pullback here, distribute, and then one more move, and then go down. That's also in sign with Bitcoin's price action as well. And that's just how it is, ladies and gentlemen. The Bitcoin dominance is also part of the factor, and it's all overlapping and intertwining with each other in terms of the overall analysis. So that's how I see it, ladies and gentlemen, about the overall Trump versus Kamala Harris administration. I believe that with all the technicals combined, I think that if we're going to be focusing on the overall narrative, now the important thing is that the narrative, now, you might not necessarily agree with me if you're a bear. There are just some people who are outright bears right now, no matter what the technical or what the fundamental analysis is pointing towards, whether it's a Trump or Kamala Harris administration. Even then, there's some people who have a hard time, difficulty understanding it. They just don't want to believe it's a bear or a bull. Some people are just going to be a perma bull or a perma bear. But if we're taking and racking up all the evidence as possible, I think that we're racking up towards one last expansion phase to the upside. Now, I could be completely wrong. I don't know. Maybe we're going to a bear market right now, but it's awfully close to all-time highs. We might as well break and create a technical high, because if we do create a technical high, even if it's above, a few $100s, it's still a technical 500 wave 5 to the upside, right? So that's how I'm seeing it. And I think Bitcoin is getting kind of rubber banding itself for a larger move to the upside if Trump is coming back into the White House. That's just how I see it. There's just so much favorability from the crypto community, and it's also favoring how the technicals are tying up. Either way, Kamala Harris administration, I think that we will still see one last distribution phase to the upside. Overall goal is this, the wave 5. Overall goal is just the shorter time frame, and then no matter what, we will have a larger pullback complete. So hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully my ideas have helped you make more make you at least second guess in terms of what could be happening towards your personal belief on crypto's price action. I don't know. We'll see the next few days. I'm going to do another live stream tomorrow, and I'm going to actually cover the live stream or the actual election outcome as well, during it and after it as well. So stay tuned. If you guys are going to be watching the election, watch it with me. I'm going to be doing the live stream as well tomorrow. So this was part 1. It's just an intro to how I believe which is going to be a favorable outcome for the technical analysis and the overall narrative, okay? So please come back tomorrow. I'm going to be doing another huge live stream tomorrow. Thank you very much. I will see you guys in the next live stream. Thank you very much. Make sure to subscribe, turn on those notifications, like the video, because it's going to be a very important live stream tomorrow. The Elliott wave count could be completely different tomorrow. We don't know. So please make sure to subscribe. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys in the next live stream. Have a fantastic rest of the day. Bye-bye.